Here on NTU, we deal with facts.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Nigeria has just added another year. 60 is indeed a milestone and calls for sober reflection amidst celebration. And as the president remarked in his speech, and I quote, celebrating 60 years of independence really calls for pomp and pageantry. But the global COVID-19 pandemic, which has forced all nations in the world to think and act differently, has also foisted on us the imperative of low-key celebration. Nigeria, a country of over 200 million people whose natural talent, grit and passion glitter like the precious diamond we are. President Muhammadu Buhari notes that the binding force is the unity in diversity. He, however, admonished citizens to uphold the spirit of togetherness in spite of differences in faith, tribe and tongue. Today, we stand on the threshold of history, as despite misgivings in some quarters about Nigeria remaining one indivisible nation, 60 years, and we are still counting. Well, it's a mixed bag for Nigerians. They are, however, unanimous that united we stand, divided we fall. Welcome to 30 Minutes on NTA News 24. Of course, today it is all about Nigeria at 60. I am Lydia Sampson. Now, let's take a look at the history of Nigeria's independence and how the country has shaped up as a nation. What are the challenges Nigeria has faced, and how is the nation dealing with the high and low moments since its creation? I took a journey down memory lane and also sought the views of some Nigerians. Nigeria at 60 means different things to different people. While the entire nation celebrates the diamond age of statehood, October 1 means so much more for some Nigerians, which naturally calls for double celebration.
I think it's divine providence more than coincidence. But I wish Nigeria all the very best. I think that, we have potentials to truly be great, and that, all of us should just rededicate ourselves to ensuring that we translate the potentials into reality.
As we turn 60, diamond age is a very significant age, and we have every reason to thank God. A lot of structures are being put in place. Mr. President is doing everything possible to change the narratives and to ensure that more women are empowered so that we can participate more in national development. The problems we're facing now have always been there, but we are making efforts for improvement on daily basis.
Congratulations, Nigeria, happy independence. We're great people, Nigerians, very, very big congratulations.
Going down memory lane, I remember how children born on October 1st were often singled out for special gifts. It is no doubt an endearing privilege to share this special day with Nigeria. Now, the historic speech delivered by Prime Minister Abuja on that auspicious day encapsulates the vision of our founding fathers. The question is, how do the present-day Nigeria compare with the lofty dreams and aspirations of our founding fathers at independence?
I want to bless the soul of our founding fathers, especially the tribe. You talk about Chief Obafemi Awolowo, you talk about the Zik the Great, and of course, Ahmadu Bello, and of course the Prime Prime Minister Tafawa Balewa, may God Almighty bless their works and their memories. These are all Nigerians. Well-schooled, articulate people. We started well by asking for independence, and we got independence in 1960. We took off well. I was not born in 1960, but I had the privilege to listen to Tafawa Balewa's submission in Washington. And look at the delivery of Tafawa Balewa. Look at the articulacy in his presentation. Look at his poise, his confidence. So, analyzing Tafawa Balewa, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Sadana of Sokoto, the Great Zik, you would say that taking off for the Nigerian nation was wonderful.
Sure, you'll all agree with me that Nigerian women have contributed immensely, even in the independence struggles. Gombo Sawaba, Mrs. Ransom Kuti, Queen Amina, these are women that paid their dues for the independence of this country.
A country under colonial government as Nigeria was before 1st October 1960 was hamstrung and unable to exercise power to realize her dreams. Only freedom will propel her to realize her potentials. That great day marked the day Nigeria was expected to begin setting her own agenda and pursuing the same to attain acceptable status among the Committee of Nations. 60 years on, how far so far?
It's been a mixed feeling, a mixed, progress for Nigeria. 60 years in the life of a nation, ordinarily you would have thought that, we would have made much more progress than we have made as a nation. But also, given the fact that we've had some, checkered interruptions in that trajectory, we can only say that it's good that we are still together as a nation. Certainly, we could have achieved much more than we are now, but I think that it just gives us an opportunity to begin to rethink how we can truly make Nigeria great.
We must admit the fact that in all fields, Nigerian women played very, very critical role. However, Nigerian women have not been adequately compensated compared to their contributions in national development.
There have been a large number of successful and failed military coups in Nigeria since the country's independence in 1960. Observers say the economic effect of military rule were not only disastrous, but pulled the nation backwards on many fronts. The traditional agricultural-based economy was abandoned, and the nation became fully dependent on export of oil, which, due to frequent fluctuation in oil prices, led to an unstable economy. Experts insist that gross incompetence, waste and mismanagement of resources, as well as the neglect of non-oil sector, led to a rise in poverty, crime, institutional decay, and urban dislocation. The instability and dissatisfaction caused by these policies was one of the causes of the consistent pattern of coups.
We had a shaky start politically. We had the trouble areas, the turbulent areas, and that led us into the cross-carpeting, the breaking, the suspicion between tribes, the various parties that were set up. And that led to the Wild Wild West, the famous Wild Wild West, the conflict in the Southwest, across the suspicion in the Middle Belt, the suspicion in the North, vis-a-vis in the East. Then that accumulated into the Civil War. But thank goodness and our great God that we survived the Civil War. Great nations all over the world had fought Civil War or Civil Wars. They have also overcome the reasons of going to war. We have come of age now, the country have come of age politically.
Against all odds, Nigeria has continued to leverage on her diversity to remain an indivisible nation.
There is improvement, but there's room for more improvement. And that's why we're top on my agenda is the girl child education. The education of the girl child is key. If you want to address so many issues affecting women, education is key.
We just want to have equal opportunity. We want we want there to be equity in these spaces in Nigeria. Let there be equity.
Are we where we should be as a people? The answer is no. But have we done well? The answer is yes. Do we have grounds of improvement? Of course. We have a lot of grounds to cover. That's the gospel truth as a people. Corruption has been our bane. Politicians themselves, in 1999, we had a lot of strange fellows coming on board. So there was no, what I'll call, cohesion, political cohesion. There was no political belonging. Like I say, what we had was just the military trying to beat the political environment to meet the expectation of the people. To that extent, yes, we've done well. But now, you can see now in Nigeria, the country is politically, we're having a direction. There's a signpost.
60 years on, what do Nigerians expect from government going forward?
The way forward is for government to make sure that this 35% affirmative action that we are asking for is passed to law. Let it become law so that at least, there won't be struggle, too much struggle. That's what I'm saying. We're just saying that just ordinary 35 out of that should be set aside for women. So the men will know that this is a no-go area for them. So I'm asking the women to continue with the struggle. And women should come together and talk in one voice.
Yes, infrastructurally, educationally, or in terms of economy, everything comes back to leadership. If we allow the right people to win elections, if our elections are gotten right, then we'll get good leadership right. Good leadership will take on our infrastructure the right way. If you have the right person as president, as governor, as minister, as senators, as whatever, as council chairman or a councillor, then our money, the people's money will not go into the few pockets or the pocket of the few.
All the parameters, all the resources that a nation requires to truly achieve greatness, we do have in this country. Whether you talk about physical or natural, endowments, or even the people and the capacity and the attitude of the typical Nigeria towards enterprise, ever hopeful. If we are able to aggregate all of this together, I think that this Nigeria of our dream that we've always talked about can then come into reality.
Respondents are hopeful that with the collective effort of citizens, spurred by the spirit of patriotism, Nigeria will eventually get to the desired destination of a nation bound in freedom, peace, and unity. Moving on now, Alika Opanachi is standing by to look at the giant strides made by government in different sectors of national life. Let's get to it. Alika, it's all over to you.
The 1st of October will always remain memorable in the lives of Nigerians. The reason is not far-fetched. 60 years ago, Nigeria gained her independence from the colonial masters, the British. And from 1960, when independence was granted to Nigeria, the nation has since declared the day a work-free day to enable citizens celebrate and reflect on the gains the nation has made in the journey so far. In the past, Independence Day used to be celebrated with pomp and pageantry from local to the national levels. Citizens were always looking forward to that day, especially students who want to exhibit their talents in march past and other extracurricular activities. However, in the last decade, Such celebrations was done in low-key, perhaps due to security challenges and other reasons. From all indications, this year's Independence Day celebration is no exception, no thanks to coronavirus pandemic still raging on. As Nigeria mark another Independence Day, some are of the opinion that Nigeria could have done better in certain areas of national life, given all the resources available to her.
It's a good thing to attain the age of 60, and it's another thing to be called 60, if you know what I mean. Now, at the age of 60, one would have expected that you've gone beyond certain infrastructural level or certain aspects of life, because at the then you've reached your peak. I mean, close to your peak, if not the peak. At 60, you were supposed to be looking at a matured interface, or maybe matured somebody who has taught and has laid legacies behind to the present day. Now, Nigeria at 60, what legacy have we left behind? Or what legacy have we laid for the past 50 years up to today? That's the question you ask.
Others, on the other hand, are optimistic of a better tomorrow, despite some of the shortcomings and challenges the country is facing at the moment, COVID-19 inclusive.
Well, how do you become 60? You know, there's a normal growth trajectory that takes you to 60. So being 60 is not just we are 60. Okay, because in these 60 years there have been, military interventions, there have been a lot of things that have, stifled our democratic and social cohesion. So it's just not being 60 that we're not even 60, we are more than 60. We're only 60 as a politically independent nation. We're over 100. We have celebrated, centenary. That was in 2014. So we're over 100. But if you're talking about being 60 politically, yes, we are 60 politically, and even in that 60, about 60 years of political independence, have we truly, been that independent as it were? No, we've not, because the globe is an intricate system where everybody is interlinked in what you call the politics of international economic relations. So it's not, you're a 60-year-old man, let's be able to value what you have done in your 60 years of, has it been a healthy growth? Has it been a steady growth? Has it been, a trajectory that has not, been altercated along the way? But in answering your question directly, we are 60 years. That makes us matured, makes us old, if you may. There are jokes about people now retiring at 60, but if life begins at 40, truly, then it simply means, we're just 20 years old. If we're going to be taking that, if you may. But I think for me, what I would advise every Nigerian to do is to have a positive outlook towards our country. That's the only way to go.
Some respondents insist that there is a need to do a forensic analysis and a deep reflection of past mistakes to make amends when necessary as the nation forges on in development and advancement across board.
The only way out is for us to come together and agree on the terms on which they should come, in other words, it should be governed. Until we come to that point of consciousness, forget it. We are only that naked on the street. Yes.
Experts note that the last 6 decades has seen nations' trajectory in economic terms dwindle. They, however, maintain that despite the dwindling economic situation in the country, especially in the last few months of the coronavirus pandemic, there is need to leverage on the low-hanging fruits to get by and hope for a better tomorrow.
Do we have our challenges economically? Yes, we do. The socio-economic realities on ground, very appealing. No, they are not. Are they appalling? Of course they are. We have growing, incidences and rates of poverty. We have insurrections and insurgency, but that's not enough to write off the country. Okay, it happens. These are all, parts of a nation building. But are we able to what should bother us is not, to what level we have sunk. Like the popular saying, goes, it's not how many times we fall that matters, but it's the ability to keep standing up and keep moving forward.
If we consider the economic indices, if you judge by that, you know that we have come a long way. There's no two ways about it. What is happening to Nigeria today, economically, it's affecting the whole world. You understand? So I think what at the end of the day we now want to do is kind of diversifying. When we diversify our economy, of course, it will take us to where we want to be.
They advised that irrespective of tribe or political leanings and other dividers, citizens must be patriotic and work in one accord towards the realization of the vision of Nigeria's economic development goal in building the nation of our dream.
There are huge challenges, and one of the most phenomenal things is that this administration, the Buhari administration, has attempted to address those challenges head on. One of the greatest challenges has been the over-involvement of the military in domestic affairs, and the government has looked closely at the reasons behind that over-involvement. One of them is the weak capacity of the police and other civil security departments. Now, what we have seen is the government attempting to improve the capacity of the police in particular. You recall that when President Buhari came in, he promised that every year he would recruit 10,000 personnel into the police force, and he has kept to his promise despite huge challenges. One of them is COVID-19 and the economy, and of course the difference between the police as an organization and then the Police Service Commission. And the good news is that just a few weeks back, he passed the Police Act 2020, which has addressed squarely that difference and has also looked at other critical areas within the police. In the area of funding, we are aware that the Police Trust Fund has been passed. A board has been, inaugurated. A chair of that board is a former IG, Inspector General of Police, and he's looking closely at how to activate and ensure that that particular trust fund meets its purpose, which is to provide funding for the police. So a lot is being done in that area. Like I said, there are challenges, no doubt. Terrorism is one of them. Banditry is increasing. The weakness of some of the security organizations, but this government is doing quite well in terms of an attempt to improve and tackle those challenges.
In the area of infrastructural development and provision of basic social amenities, experts note that there is a need to close the widening gap in the social and economic divide of Nigeria.
I'm a bona fide Nigerian and I'm proud of Nigeria. God has blessed Nigeria. Rich human and natural resources, yes, they abound. But the problem we have in this country is leadership. Now, in a country like Nigeria, we're supposed to be having what we call continuity of government. Okay, Mr. A government comes into power, whatever he does and wherever he stops, when Mr. B is coming in, he takes up from where Mr. A left behind. But that's not the case with our country. When Mr. A left, the projects, the policies he started, those that he has implemented and those he left unimplemented, when Mr. B comes in, he doesn't look at them. He abolishes those projects and then think of another. This is a waste of resources. Because those projects lying down there are supposed to be executed and kept running, but they are not. Now, the aspect of those projects is now hindered. The purpose at which they are set up for are not accomplished. That is a waste. Now, if we say we are 60 today, infrastructural decay, we are still importing fuel. What do they call it? Housing scheme. It's a bleak.
There has been new innovations, okay, in terms of infrastructure, more roads, connectivity, connecting more places. But let me tell you one thing: we lost something. Railway. The rail was moving from Port Harcourt to the north frequently. Is it here? No. So while we gained on roads, we lost so much on the railway. And again, another area that we have gained is the airports.
Let's start with the transportation sector. Because you see, transportation is very crucial for any society. I mean, there is a very interesting quote by John F. Kennedy. He says, America has good roads, not because America is rich. America is rich because it has good roads. So there is a nexus, between economic prosperity and transport infrastructure. Let's look at our roads. Currently today, we have our national road network is about 198,000 to 200,000 kilometers. It wasn't so at independence. So we've grown our road networks. I mean, you know how long it used to take to travel from maybe Port Harcourt to Maiduguri at independence. It's no longer like that. You know how long? My late father, went to school in the UK and also in Sierra Leone, Furebe College. I think it used to take him about a week or two, to get to those places, from, his village. So if you look at the road network, what has happened is unbelievable. Let's look at air transportation. At independence, I think we had only 2 aerodromes, Lagos and Kano. How many do we have today? People can very easily fly around the country and take it for granted. It wasn't like that before. Now, let's look at rail network. Let's look at how the rail network has expanded. You want to know that prior to the construction of the Maiduguri Jos to Port Harcourt rail, it took 47 days for goods to move from Jos to the ports in Port Harcourt. But when the rail was constructed, it now took 47 hours. So you can look at, the improvement that way. Then look at educational institutions. How many universities did we have? How many secondary schools did we have? How many hospitals did we have across, the country? Then look at housing. Remember there was a time in this country when you saw mud houses in our capitals. Have you seen any mud house in Abuja? We need to celebrate, things like that.
As Nigeria mature in age and strides, citizens are hopeful that the labor of the heroes past in building the foundation on which the nation rests will indeed not be in vain.
As Nigeria attained the historic 60 years, experts says it is appropriate to reflect on what the country set out to do at independence on October 1st, 1960, with reference to the historic speech delivered by Prime Minister Abubakar Tafawa Balewa on that auspicious day, the high points of which will give insight into whether we are moving on the right track according to the vision of our founding fathers, with a view to charting a way forward for a greater Nigeria. Thank you for watching. I'm Lydia Sampson.
My brother, my sister, papa, mama, and pikin. Corona, no big pass us. We go fight time, we go win. As long as we remember to always do the right thing. Wash your hands, love each other. We go, we know. Corona, na the virus, we dey worry human being. E no get Lego, but e dey waka from person to person. But we fit beat time, we fit stop time if we maintain good hygiene and practice social distancing. We go, we know. No shaking hands with your neighbor. Blow them a kiss from afar. Use soap and water to wage war. Let's show this thing who we are. We are special, we're courageous, we are awesome human beings. We dey super, we get power, we can conquer anything. If we hear word and obey laws and exercise discipline. Wash your hands, love each other, we go, we know. If it be like say you know well, like it's something they do you, and you feel say, you believe say, you get to see they do you, and your body no grisogy, like it's something they do you. No let panic finish you, you go, we know. Self-isolate. sake of all the people that you love.
President Buhari reaffirms commitment towards critical investment in Nigerians.
We have also recently introduced the 75 billion naira Nigerian Youth Investment Fund.
Senate endorses procurement and administration of COVID-19 vaccine in Nigeria.
Have to prepare for a supplementary appropriation because this is a matter of life and death.
Information Minister warns against politicizing national security.
There have been calls in some quarters for Mr. President to resign. Well, let me say here that this call amounts to plain dirty politics.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss options for population management in Nigeria.
So permit me to begin our conversation this morning by asking you a question. What is your greatest treasure on earth? So while you ponder over it, let me also stoke your imagination and tickle your wits. And if I may borrow a line or two from singer Sinead O'Connor, nothing really compares with family.
There is no doubt about that, Clive, and we can only say that when life gives you a lemon, it will most probably be members of your family that will encourage you emotionally and financially to make the proverbial lemonade. But sadly, not all families are privileged to perform this role, and the most critical question there will be, why?
Well, Kingsley, you and I know that the answer is simple. Planning, planning, and planning. And when you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So government officials have indicated that Nigeria has one of the worst maternal death rates in the world, with as much as 512 maternal deaths per 100,000 live births.
Now, the Honorable Minister of Health, Dr. Osagie Ihaniye, recently indicated that the Nigerian woman has a 1 in 22 lifetime risk of dying from pregnancy, childbirth, or postpartum incidents, or more likely also cases of abortion. Whereas the lifetime risk for women in other parts of the world is put at 1 in 4,900. And that's a word of difference, Claire.
Indeed, Kingsley. Now, the World Health Organization, that's WHO, also reports that in 2019, infant mortality rate in Nigeria specifically was as high as 74.2%, and that's per 1,000 live births. Now, those figures are indicative of not just deficit in healthcare delivery infrastructure at both national and subnational levels, but also failure of individuals to plan for their families.
Well, Claire, the consequences of not planning before undertaking an action could be very well dire. And as you said earlier, it manifests by ways of depressing infant and maternal death statistics indicated by the Minister of Health.
And that is just one of the many ways that lack of planning can affect the family. A large number of rural families here in Nigeria are classified as poor or extreme poor. Majority of them have large family size and they can provide for or support. So family health advocates have also indicated that more than 30% of women are at risk of unintended pregnancy.
Now, unless families are planned and timed, the WHO and indeed other family health advocates warn of an imminent population
explosion, if you like, that could impact adversely on the well-being and living conditions of the people, especially those in countries classified as high fertility risk areas. Now, those countries would include developing ones such as Nigeria.
Well, at the moment, available data estimates world population at 4.3 billion, and that's likely to hit more than 10 billion in the next 100 years. But discussions around population management have always stirred controversy, especially around cultural, political, and fundamental right issues. But the question again is, other than sexual reproductive health and family planning, are there other options to manage population? This is part of the assignment we have on Good Morning Nigeria this Friday. I am Claire Dilabo Abdul Razak. Always a pleasure to have you join us.
Well, Claire, there's no question about it that family planning is one topic that you cannot discuss without stirring some controversy. But regardless, experts believe that you cannot have maternal health without reproductive health, and reproductive health includes, among other things, family planning. So, expectation is that our guest today will give us insights into other available options. And by the way, let's also look very briefly at the economic consequences of population explosion. And we are seeing all around us, Nigeria is said to be at some point 200 million, another point we're saying 210. Only a few years ago we were talking about 190 and even before then 120. But the consequences are manifest. You have a number of persons who are looking for work. Opportunities are limited in terms of bed spaces, even in universities or institutions of higher learning, and the capacity of government to provide for the people, and overall quality of life for families that are large. And of course, you remember that we had a policy here in this country under the Babangida administration that said, look, limit your family size to 4. That's to say 4 children. A number of persons scoffed at that at the time, but today, 30 years later, we're all seeing the adverse effects of that. Some persons have often argued that, population is a huge plus for us, that provides a market, it provides many hands for jobs, but we do know that today we are having a demographic crisis on our hands.
But Kingsley, others would also give you an example in China that used to have a policy, of course, restricting the family size to just 1 or 2, but now they have had to review that size to, allow some flexibility.
Well, there's no question about that, but you also have to go back to what happened from 1978 when Deng Xiaoping began to take China out of poverty on account of the economic policies that were engineered by that administration. And today, of course, China is the world's second largest economy, most likely overtaking the US in a short while. Technological advance, there are jobs available, China can feed itself, and so on and so forth. So, are you not going to be imitating China?
This is the kind of controversy that this topic generates when it's discussed, of course, in the public. But Kingsley and I, as we said earlier on, plus our guests that will have you on the program, will give us insight into other options. Kingsley.
All right, I'm Kingsley Osadola. I join my colleague Claire to also welcome you to the program. As always, we're live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're broadcasting here from our Abuja headquarters studios. In the course of the program, our typical companion segments will follow. These include business, news, and newspaper review. In the meantime, let's get the highlights of the morning news with Chimobi Walter Nanji. Hello, Chimobi.
Hello, good morning.
Are you for 4 or for 2 or for 1?
Good morning, Kingsley and Claire.
Get a size you can manage.
It's a very exciting topic, I must tell you, and people have different opinion as to what family size they would want to have. Good morning, Nigeria, and here is the morning news. President Muhammadu Buhari has renewed his appeal to heads of states and governments, especially in West Africa, to at all times respect their people and fully appreciated their support through purposeful and result-oriented leadership. Granting audience to the President of the Gambia, Adama Barrow, on a courtesy visit, President Buhari said, in a democracy, people can do themselves a lot of favor by doing the right things.
Because Nigeria have been very, very supportive. Nigeria have been a very good brother. Nigeria have been a big brother supporting us in different areas: technical assistance, judiciary, education sector, and the economic team in the Gambia. So Nigeria have been very, very, very supportive. So we said, no, if you want to thank a farmer, the best place to thank him is to come to his farm. That's why we are here to thank Mr. President.
In a related development, President Muhammadu Buhari has reaffirmed the commitment of his administration towards pursuing more diligently critical investments in people, especially the youths, most vulnerable and poorest members of the society. Consequently, the creative and innovative recommendations by participants of the Senior Executive Course 42 of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies will be studied and explored for implementation as soon as possible. This was at the 2020 presidential parley with the participants at the State House.
I am personally delighted to observe that the National Institute is meeting its mandate as the nation apex think tank. I congratulate you for your patriotic efforts. The contribution of the National Institute to human capital development at a strategic level over the years is worthy of commendation. Government will continue to support the Institute not only in the discharge of its mandate, but also in its avowed determination to become one of the top 3 think tanks in Africa before the year 2025.
And now turning our attention to the National Assembly, where the Senate has endorsed the procurement and administration of COVID-19 vaccine in Nigeria. It was reported that the legislators also urged government to make adequate provision of funds for it.
The Senate is worried that the failure to administer vaccines to Nigeria will result in the country not being able to control the COVID-19 infection, and a possible ban on traveling by Nigerians may be instituted by countries around the world.
The idea that has been circulated that this has the tendency to change our genetic constitution is wrong. It has no way of intervening with the DNA.
Invite the Federal Ministry of Health, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Federal Ministry of Finance, and any other relevant government agency that is to present to it detailed plan approval. If we are not able to do it in the 2021 appropriation, then we have to prepare for a supplementary appropriation, because this is a matter of life and death.
Meanwhile, government will continue to pursue an all-inclusive policies, particularly the 5% employment quota for persons living with disabilities, to give hope for this category of Nigerians. On the occasion of the International Day for Disabilities, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, paid tribute to the efforts of many of them who are braving the odds.
Challenges we face most of the time is discrimination, both in our family and in peers, in the environment where we work.
There is nothing a physically challenged person cannot do. It depends on the way you develop yourself and, of course, the interest you show in bettering your life condition.
In other matters now, Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed has described as playing dirty politics with the nation's security. The minister stated this at a meeting with members of the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria in Lagos.
In the wake of the killing, there have been calls in some quarters for Mr. President to resign. But let me say here that this call amounts to playing dirty politics with the issue of security. It is cheap and irresponsible. Mr. President was elected in 2015 for a 4-year term and re-elected in 2019 for another 4-year term. No amount of hysterical calls for resignation would prevent him from serving out his term.
And former chairman of the Pension Reform Task Team, Abdulrashid Maina, has been extradited to Nigeria from Niamey, Niger Republic, by the Nigeria Police Force. Maina was arrested on the 30th of November 2020 through the collaborative efforts of the operatives of the Nigeria Police Force, Interpol, Abuja, and their Nigerian counterparts.
Niamey, Niger Republic, to extradite a fugitive that is wanted by the EFCC. And Mr. Abdurrashid Abdullahi Maina is brought back to Nigeria. And we are acting under the instruction of the Inspector General of Police, whom the other law enforcement agencies applied to him.
Now, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, has announced 343 new cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria. The latest figure released brings the total number of confirmed cases to 68,303 infections in the country. A breakdown of the new cases from 14 states indicates that FCT recorded the highest number for the day with 123 new cases, while Lagos has 106 new cases. Others are Kaduna 72, Nasarawa 14, Rivers 5, while Bauchi, Imo and Ogun State recorded 4 new cases each. Ekiti State recorded 3 new cases, while Edo, Oyo and Plateau State recorded 2 new cases each. Today's tally is completed by Akwa Ibom and Kano states recording 1 new case each. Confirmed cases per state, Lagos has the highest with 23,545, followed by the FCT with 6,991, and Plateau comes third with 3,904 cases. With the latest development, total number of active cases stands at 2,833, while 64,291 cases have been successfully treated and discharged, while an unfortunate 1,179 patients died unfortunately. And that's the morning news. The program continues with Kingsley and Claire after the break. Stay with us.
A scorecard like no other. Government has put in place measures and initiatives principally targeted at youths, women, and the most vulnerable groups in our society. These included broad plan to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in the next 10 years. The creation of 75 billion naira National Youth Investment Fund to provide opportunities for the youths, and the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Survivor Fund, through which government is A. Paying 3-month salaries of the staff of 100,000 micro, small and medium enterprises. B. Paying for the registration of 250,000 businesses at the Corporate Affairs Commission. C. Giving a grant of 30,000 naira to 100,000 artisans and guaranteeing market for the product of traders. These are in addition to many other initiatives such as farmer money, trader money, market money, N-Power, N-Tech, and N-Agro. These and more in spite of a recession and a global pandemic. Although social media as a channel of communication is inherently harmless, it becomes harmful and damaging when used without discretion and thoughtfulness. Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, reflect, and verify information before sharing it. Be a good social media user. Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source and use social media responsibly for a better Nigeria. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, in collaboration with the National Orientation Agency. The Council of Our Fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Life can be very eventful. We curiously expect things to. Our human nature makes us like and repost lots of information. Some are unverified, inciting anger and hate. Sometimes innocently, other times the urge to break it first. This, in most cases, has caused destruction in many nations.
The Red Devils will look to continue their greatest away form when they travel to London to face the Hammers this Saturday. Will they succeed, or will the Hammers win their third consecutive home game against the Red Devils? Find out when West Ham United host Manchester United on the Premier League Live from 6 p.m, showing on the NTA network. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Axis Bank, Papai Jebu, Lipton Tea, and Close Up in association with Gold.com.
You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Next is business news, and here is our correspondent, Ronami Egirani.
An increased value-added tax of 10% for VAT defaulters instead of the standard 7.5% was included in the new finance bill. The bill, which seeks to review, repeal, amend, and consolidate several tax legislations, including the 2019 Value-Added Tax Act, will block various avenues of tax avoidance and increase revenue for the federal government. The Senate leader, Yahaya Abdullahi, says that the new value-added tax legislation will not only impact the VAT Act of 2019, but the Capital Gains Act as well. The finance bill passed its second reading on Wednesday and is intended as an auxiliary document to the 2021 appropriation bill if it is approved by the National Assembly. Now let's see how the stock market performed on Thursday, the 3rd of December, 2020. With business news, I'm Ronami Egirani.
All right, thank you for joining us. If you've just tuned in, you are watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service. And of course, the program is Good Morning Nigeria. Bayo TV will be joining us in a moment for newspaper review.
Our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atoyebe, is with us in the studios. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kesley. Good morning. Good morning, Claire.
Good morning, Bayo.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay, let me start with the Punch. And it's on COVID-19 vaccine. That's the lead story. Nigerians risk global travel ban, and Senate warns enemy allays fears. Details of that on page 2. But here are the writers to that story. Failure to administer COVID-19 vaccine will worsen economy, and that's the Senate committee chair. Coronavirus vaccine still going through trials, says Nigerian Medical Association president. And 20% Vaccine Global Alliance promised Nigeria too small. We need 80% coverage. That's from Professor Tomori. And the picture star is making the day in the front page of the Punch. Maina extradited EFCC alleges suspect bought U.S. Dubai property. And away from that story, families of slain Borno farmers get 600,000 naira each on page 7. And 6 injured as fuel tanker crashes in Plateau, page 5. Yaya presents 119 billion naira budget to Gombe, Assembly, page 16. Now, other stories are trending at the foot of the paper. Hoodlums loot relief materials from Benue flood victims. It's on page 5. Bandits kill 2, abduct schools in Kaduna community, page 41. And gunmen raid Edo Highway, kidnap passengers, kill vigilante. It's on page 4. So let's go towards the top of the headline. Trending stories, IG queries forced legal officer for suing #EndSARS panels. It's on page 7. And Bauchi governor accuses FRSC of extorting motorists. It's on page 10. And rising insecurity, Buhari may appear before reps December 10. And the two other stories, just before Kinsley comes in, reps summon Ahmed Emefiele over $21 billion NLNG funds and 1.2 trillion naira proceeds. And the last one there is $11 million fraud. US detainee Invictus Obi forfeits another 235 million naira to FG. Kinsley.
All right, we'll also take a look at the front page of the Nation newspaper. The Nation newspaper above the nameplate say AGF, that's Attorney General of the Federation, that's the kicker. CCB should allow access to public officers' assets. I would imagine that to be assets declaration. And CCB is the Code of Conduct Bureau. It should allow access to public officers' assets declaration. 4 dead as kidnappers hijack Benin Abuja Road, and efforts on to free victims. That's the rider. Details are on page 4. Nasarawa to conduct local government election. 2 killed as APC and PDP supporters clash in Zamfara. And below the name plaque, you have Fire Gods Niger Market. 2 security volunteers killed in Kaduna. And #EndSARS, that's the kicker. IGP disowns suit to stop probe of officers. IGP stands for the Inspector General of Police. Men now flown back to Abuja to face trial. And you can see photographs of him there arriving in Abuja from Nigerian Republic, where he was extradited. He was accompanied by Interpol officers. Details on page 26. This story again has another kicker. We have a multiplicity of kickers today on the front page of the Nation. Government to elders. Buhari won't quit over Borno killings. APC to blame for heightened terrorism, says PDP. That's one of the riders. Another says DHQ, the Defense Headquarters, urges Nigerians not to fear. Second list story says CBN eyes $2 billion monthly diaspora remittances and recipients to start collecting currency of choice from today. That's on page 8. And more support for court order restraining NDDC Interim Management Committee. That's page 8. Bio.
Thank you, Kinsley. Let's start with the news coming from Borno. Borno State government has given 600,000 each to the 48 families who were killed in their rice farms in Zabamari. These shared funds came from the combined support of 20 million provided by Northern Governors Forum and 5 million provided by the Northeast Development Commission. The Commissioner for Youth and Sports, Saina Buba, who was assigned, is also to distribute about 13,000 bags of rice, maize, and beans, 1,300 cans of vegetables, as well as 2,116 cartons of seasoning and other food items. These were provided by the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management, and Social Development. This was to support the families, especially the dead of most of the males who were breadwinners of their families. Meanwhile, Defense Headquarters says it lacked powers to hire mercenaries, has been advised to fight terrorism in the country. The coordinator for Defense Media Operations, Major General John Nature, says that the power to hire mercenaries is the prerogative of the federal government and the Nigerian people. He says the armed forces are not outstretched. Rather, the armed forces are focused on winning the war and restoring peace to all parts of the country. The House of Representatives has given an indication that the president, they are likely to host the president next Thursday, that is December 10. December 10, or in the alternative, the upper Tuesday. The chairman House Committee on Media and Public Affairs, Benjamin Kalu, says that the House did not summon the president. When you summon, you give a date and time. But this is a back channel diplomacy, as he described it. He says this is legislative diplomacy we are inviting. And when you invite, you rub minds and you seek to give time for the guest to select the most convenient time to attend. So we are looking forward to solutions. The sad story about kidnappers, this happened along Benin-Lokoja Road. The reports say that kidnappers laid siege and attacked a commercial bus. They took all the passengers away. And they now took the bus and ordered the driver to block the highway with the bus. A trailer was coming, and when he spotted that there was likely an ambush, he didn't stop. He just rammed through, and unfortunately, he also killed 2 people. This caused hold up and tail back, and the other group of the kidnappers had a field day. They kept on selecting among the passengers for whom they will kidnap. At the end of the day, about 26 persons were taken away. There is concern expressed in the Senate about the need for the federal government to make bold efforts towards vaccine. Senator Ibrahim Oluriegbe, on a point of order at the Senate, raised concerns that since February 28, when we first had our index case, and up to just last week, we have had as many as 67,960 cases. Although 63,829 have been discharged, we still lost 1,777 of our compatriots. We need led a motion of an urgent need for Nigeria to obtain and administer COVID-19 vaccines to citizens to enable a prevention of COVID-19. He also raised an alarm that if this is not done, Nigerians stand to be banned from traveling abroad. The Senate President, Ahmed Lawan, also said that if the procurement of vaccine have not been provided for in the 2021 budget, it means that a supplementary appropriation will become very necessary, because this is a matter of life and death. However, the Nigerian Medical Association President Innocent Uja says that what is available across the globe is a vaccine trial. There is no vaccine available. And the President also adds, whenever the vaccine is available, it will have to go through a clinical trial for Nigerians. The clinical trial is to evaluate the efficacy and the safety before it will be used. Meanwhile, Professor Oyewale Tomori, who heads the Nigerian Committee about vaccine, says the 20% vaccine pledged to Nigeria by Global Alliance is too small, and something has to be done. So far, there have been potentials about 7 vaccines.
Let's get this clear. There is a committee already set up by the Minister of Health on the COVID-19 vaccine. We discussed the topic some days ago on Good Morning Nigeria. A director from the Federal Ministry of Health was seated where you are seated now. Professor Tomori was also here with us in the studios. And we also had another guest. So the committee is already working on it. That's to say, we also had the CEO of the Primary Healthcare Development Agency. They are all members of the committee. They are already working on it to say, look, which are the, shall we say, candidate vaccines best suited for us? Because there are a number of vaccines out there. You have the Pfizer vaccine, you have the AstraZeneca, you have the one Sputnik from Russia, and another one from China. So it is for the committee to select that which is most suitable for us, and then, of course, get ahead with making purchases for the population to have the benefit of vaccination. So that issue is already being addressed. The other more worrisome issue is the kidnapping incident you talked about. Now, of course, this has made the headlines today, but for travelers on the Benin, Auchi, Okene, Lokoja, and Abuja highway, this is a daily occurrence. It's a daily occurrence. And you can imagine that this incident took place less than 50 kilometers from Benin. And they say you took them into a forest, as if these forests are impenetrable. It's a daily occurrence. They just block the highway, pick passengers, and as you indicated in the details, they were selecting and picking, which of the passengers they probably deemed were sufficiently affluent enough to be able to pay the ransom, and then take them into the forest. Where is the law enforcement? I will keep asking, don't we have drones? Children are playing with drones these days that you can use to monitor from remotely, and then, of course, know how to proceed and deal with them. It makes traveling by road very hazardous.
Indeed.
I wanted to talk about the candidates for the vaccine. We need to be very circumspect because, for instance, the Pfizer vaccine that's been touted, you have to preserve it at minus 70 degrees at Antarctic temperature. We don't have facilities here. In fact, already Germany is having challenge exporting the vaccine whenever it will be ready.
We have the Honorable Minister of Health here with us, fortunately. So we will probably, I'm sure he's listening.
Yes.
And then he will maybe
what
speak
I'm
to...
saying is that there's already a committee set up. It's the business of that committee to consider all of these issues.
All right.
You get my point.
Bayo,
Yes.
thank you. We'll see you next week.
All right.
Let's go on a break now.
Our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
It's a season of smiles on our faces with LifeMate Furniture's 48% discount on all products, 20% discount on Royal products, and 30% discount on V-Mate electrical appliances. From the 27th November to 20th December, treat your loved ones and win cars, refrigerators, TV, and electric motorcycles. So hurry and buy LifeMate Furniture to win great gifts and raffle tickets. Prepare for the raffle draw on the 19th of December 2020, 1 p.m. at Chika Mba Close, Lekki Ekpe Expressway, Osapa Village, Lagos, Nigeria. Follow on Facebook at LifeMate Furniture to win beautiful toys and call 081 2000 6000 for more. Celebrate your Christmas with love and all LifeMate Furniture showrooms. Happy holidays from LifeMate Furniture. LifeMate, making your life better.
Nigerian youths are about the greatest assets the country has at the moment. It is therefore not surprising that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is strategically responding to the yearnings of the youth through multiple projects and programs. Youth Entrepreneurship Support Years by Bank of Industry, the Youth Investment Fund by the CBN, and several other conditional cash transfer programs. Recruitment of 774,000 social workers, majority of whom are youth, and so many other projects that are beneficial to youths directly or indirectly. If the administration can do all this, definitely with a degree of patience and time, it can achieve more. Nigerian youths must come together to say no to terrorism, no to vandalism, and no to all disruptive tendencies. Hashtag Youth for Greater Nigeria. Pacifying the youths, unifying the nation.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous. Whether you do it for fun or for political gains, real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
The Red Devils will look to continue their greatest away form when they travel to London to face the Hammers this Saturday. Will they succeed or will the Hammers win their third consecutive home game against the Red Devils? Find out when West Ham United host Manchester United on the Premier League Live from 6 p.m. showing on the NTA network. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Axis Bank, Papai Jebu, Lipton Tea, and Close Up in association with Gold.com.
You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of Africa's largest television network, Nigerian Television Authority. To begin our conversation this morning, which is on options in population management for Nigeria, let's listen into this background put together by our correspondent, Oyemi Ajayi.
Of course, family planning is a good idea.
Family planning is just like trying to hinder God or what God says concerning reproduction, concerning multiplication. So family planning is an idea of the modern man, not for...
Nigerian population can stop and be managed if some parts of the country are reducing, are stopped to marry up to 4 or 5 wives. Because if you come to the southern part of the country, I think some people are married not more than 1 wife. They get birth to 3 or 4 children, highest 5. But in the other side of the country, they marry up to 4 wives, get birth to about 30, 40 children. So how can you reduce you can't reduce it until they agree to stop marriage more than 1 wife.
It is very good to at least us that is well-read to have a idea of family planning. Family plans give you a loom to at least to know the numbers of children. At least you know you can take care of, you can give them best academic, well-fed, live in a good environment. So it is very good, at least for a family plan.
It's very good to do a family planning for women. It's good.
Why do you say? Well, there's no need to tell anybody now in this country of Nigeria today that family planning is very, very important, because with the situation of the country, we don't need to be told for you to know how to manage your family. So if we are no more living in old life, old time, when we have numbers of children, believing that the children will be of an assistance for you in the farm and whatever. But this time around, family plan has to be, every family man has to plan of how to manage his family.
Very interesting contributions there from those respondents. Thank you, Oyemi Ajayi, for compiling them. So welcome. If you've just joined us, again, this is Good Morning Nigeria, and our conversation this morning will center around how to manage population explosion, of course, which is not peculiar to Nigeria. It's a global discussion. So let me quickly introduce the Honorable Minister of Health, who has joined us again here in the studio live, Dr. Sage Hanire. Thank you very much for joining us. And also we have here with us Dr. Ejike Oji, who is the Chairman, Technical Management Committee, the Association for the Advancement of Family Planning. He's also Chairman, Local Organizing Committee of the 6th Nigeria Family Planning Conference. Dr. Oji, good to have you with us again.
Thank you for having me this morning.
All right. Also here with us in the studios is Ula Elizabeth Mula. She's the resident representative in Nigeria of the United Nations Population Fund. That's UNFPA. A pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay. And joining us via Zoom from Akwanga in nearby Nasarawa State, I would like to welcome Arizechi Unduka Alfonso, who is the Acting Director and Head of the Population Management Department of the National Population Commission, NPC. Mr. Alfonso, a pleasure to have you with us this morning.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, the issues ordinarily are clear, but they are, of course, much deeper than the topic would indicate, which are options in population management in Nigeria. And happily, we've had Dr. Ejike Oji join us from time to time in recent years to discuss issues around population management in Nigeria. But let's begin with the Honorable Minister of Health. From a sociological and even medical point of view, why should any entity, in this case a country, be concerned about managing its population?
It is clear that you aspire to manage your population to fit your economic situation. If you are able to align
population growth with economic growth and take care of your citizens properly, then you have actually started understanding the target. The growth of an economy, which all countries aspire to, should not be outstripped by the growth of the population. Otherwise, there's a decline in prosperity. So it is a matter of responsibility that population growth properly aligns with economic growth, and that you have citizens that are healthy, well-fed, well-educated, and well-positioned to contribute their own quota to the country.
In terms of aligning, just as you said, with economic growth, how do you evaluate our population vis-a-vis economic growth?
Well, right now, that is not very well aligned. Economic growth is lagging slightly behind, somewhat behind population growth. And there are sociologists and those who study society and behavior who think that that is part of what is responsible for the restiveness of the youth at the moment, in that there is a large number of the addition to population annually, and the opportunities are not forthcoming in the same proportion. You don't have enough jobs, enough schools, enough positions for the population as they are coming along. So that creates a certain tension. And if you follow the opinion of those who look at this subject in a broad way, they will say that there is a connectivity between the restiveness and the opportunities available.
All right, Dr. Yohanide, thank you very much. Let's bring in Dr. Ejike Ojina to also pitch in with regard to the nexus involving population size, prosperity, and ultimately family planning. Usually, there are rates that we take a look at. That's fertility rate and population growth rate. What is it that we are dealing with now, and how are we close to overcoming some of our current challenges?
Yes, thank you, Kingsley. When we talk about how do we measure our population and then the way it grows, Nigeria, based on National Population Commission's estimates, coming from the 2006 census, where we were counted to be 140 million, they posited there were about 221 million as we speak. And our total fertility rate is about 5.3. So, and then if you also look at our modern methods contraceptive prevalence rate is about 12%, but that was NDHS 2018, so it might be a lot better now because 2 years have passed. So when you look at that, you see that we have a very big population with a very high fertility rates, and the number of women taking contraceptive measures to manage or plan their families are very small. So what has now happened is we have some demographers who say that we're almost in a demographic crisis. So in other words, what do you see to make you believe that we are in that kind of crisis is, first of all, you have the youthful bulge. 70% of our population is under the age of 30. In fact, 45% of the population is actually under the age of 15. And then if you look at the elderly, just about 3.5% of our population is above the age of 65. So when you look at the dependency ratio of the population, about 86.5% of our population is dependent on the other 12-point-something%. So that shows you a high youthful bulge. Then the second one is when you have a lot of young people, even people that are a little older, living in the country. You see a lot of very well-educated young people trained by Nigerian money, living the country every day, especially young medical doctors. They are immigrating to Canada as we speak. Not only that, but you see also non-highly educated people living the country. Some estimates show that 14% of all the people that cross the tempestuous sea of the Mediterranean, I like to underline that to show you how desperate these people are to cross over to Europe. They're Nigerians. Some months ago, 44 migrants were attacked and killed in Libya. 9 of them were Nigerians. When this administration came, they didn't like how Nigerians were being treated in Libya. there was a plane load of Nigerians coming back. That will show you young people trying to leave. Then the last one is when you see issues of nationals killing nationals. You remember that OPC started years ago, about 2004-5 or so, followed by militancy in the Niger Delta. And then you had kidnapping and Bakassi boys in the southeast, followed by the religious crisis on the plateau, and then Boko Haram in the northeast, then banditry in the northwest. Now you have herders farmers clash all over the places. And this is happening in a situation where the physical size of Nigeria is actually shrinking, so to speak. Every year, the Sahara Desert is encroaching at the rate of 3 to 4 meters every year. The Lake Chad that has about 4 million hectares of arable land. Some estimates show that it's shrunken by almost 95% of its original size 50 years ago. So you can see, and our economy is actually mono economy. It's just that this administration is trying to diversify. It was a mono economy focused only on oil. When oil prices drop, that means the quantum of money we have to use to take care of our citizens have also dropped. So these are some of this. In fact, when I look at my honorable minister occasionally, I wonder how he manages. Let me give you a simple example to show how there this is. In 2016, the capital budget for the Federal Ministry of Health, in terms of Naira value, was way, way above the Naira value in 2007. But you look at the dollar-denominated value, is actually about 70% of what the Federal Ministry of Health got as capital vote in 2007. So per capita, it's reduced funding to individual Nigerians for the healthcare needs of this country. So these are some of the pictures I like to bring to the fore to see that it is not easy.
All right, Dr. Jike, thank you. Let me bring Ola now. Ola, the minister talked about the need for population to be properly aligned with the economic growth, which is quite logical. But conversely, some countries also deploy population demography as an economic tool within the context of, markets and human resources. Basically, in talking about population management, what are the specific conversations?
I think the minister alluded to it quite accurately, actually, because the specific conversations is, of course, how you can sustain both economic and social growth. So one of the concepts under the African Union is the demographic dividend, which is really how you reap that benefit that comes from having a well-educated, productive group on the labor market who are able to also then take care of the people, of the elderly people or people who need health care or for some reason are not economically active. So the discussions we have around that is, of course, education, how is the education system working, but also how is family planning and demographics playing into that. So the investments you make into those areas is all about ensuring that you develop job opportunities for young people, but also that young people who are our future, and we just heard how many young people there are in Nigeria, actually have the opportunity to make their own decisions about what are their family aspirations. How would they like their family to look like? And in that, of course, also how many children do they want? So it's about making informed decisions about your lives. It's about creating job opportunities. But it's also about enabling governments to see how is the investment we have to do in healthcare. If the population looks like this, how much money do we need to send towards education? How much do we need to send towards healthcare, care for the elderly? And you cannot do that if you don't understand and manage your growth. Because you need to know, when we talk about education, you need to know 10 years from now, how much money do we need in the education system? So these are the conversations we have. We also have the conversations around women on the labor market. And that is one of the things we often forget when we talk about demographics. In a country like Nigeria, we need to also ensure that every citizen in the country contributes. And when women do not have the opportunity to also make their own choices, they very often do not end up on the labor market, or they don't finish their education. And that means that they're not contributing. So the government and the country and the communities are actually not getting the return on the investment that initially starts with a girl child when she goes to school. But she has to finish her education, and then she can give back. So it's about how we ensure that everyone in society can give back and contribute to a healthy economic development in the country. And women and girls play a critical role in that too.
All right. Thank you very much, Ula Mula. We'll return to you in the course of the conversation. Now, let's join Alfonso, whom we earlier introduced via Zoom. You can see him there on the right side of your screen. He's Acting Director, Head Population Management Department of the National Population Commission. Mr. Alfonso, now give us an idea of what the numbers are like now, because we keep hearing about projections since the last national population census we had was in 2006, and there's no indication that when we're going to have the next exercise. So what are the numbers looking like in terms of absolute numbers, in terms of also disaggregation, youth, elderly, and so on and so forth, and where are the pressures coming from?
Yeah, thank you very much. We took our last census in 2006, to be precise, and this is 2020. And by global standard, we're supposed to take our censuses decennially, that's every 10 years. And any figure that is outside that 10 years is not reliable, it's totally obsolete. And that is why we are crying for, we're struggling to have our next census. And I'm happy that government is responding. So we're full progress to make our conduct our next census very soon.
It looks like there is a freeze. Alfonso, I asked the other leg of my question, namely, what are the numbers now? You've only responded to when we might have a census. No date, of course, has been fixed, and I doubt if there is any line item for that in the 2021 appropriation of the federal government. I'm saying, what are our numbers now? What is the projection? We keep hearing we are 200 million, 210, X, Y, Z. How many young persons do we have? How many elderly persons do we have? And what are the projections for the growth or decline of these subgroups and sub-numbers?
Just like I said earlier, the projections are not reliable. So that's why we're working hard towards conducting the next census. Right now, we're doing our enumeration area demarcation, which will give the country frame to conduct reliable census. And our hands are on deck. Very soon, we'll be in a field to make progress and to proceed to get into that, come over that one before we conduct our census. And all our census documents are being, worked on. We are more or less getting ready for the proclamation for the census. Any figure we'll give you now will be unreliable because outside the reliable figure, outside the frame that can be relied on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alfonso. But I do recall that a couple of years ago, the then chairman of your commission was in New York, and he was widely quoted as saying at the time that Nigeria's population was 198 million. I don't know where the 2 million or 5 or 6 addition has come in now that we're now saying we are 200 and something. So perhaps we might stick with that and say we remain 198 million until you conduct a reliable census exercise. Thank you very much. We hope to return to you in the course of the conversation. Let's bring in again the Honourable Minister of Health.
Yes, so please, Honourable Minister, I'd just like for us to look at our policies so far in terms of have we been deliberate with our policies towards addressing population growth? Have we been specific with our policies? Are they targeted? Have they been targeted?
Well, yes, it is. From the conversations you've heard so far, the clips that you played before we started, you can see that the issue of population is a fairly delicate issue, and delicate because there are those who believe that it's something that God gives you. Others look at it that if you must be able to manage the number of children you have. You shouldn't have children in excess of what you should have. So the questions around population, particularly the number of children that you should have, is fairly delicate. And government definitely relies on the fact that there's going to be birth control. There's going to be that every family should have a number of children that they can manage, and not have children in excess of what their economic situation actually should permit.
I was just wondering, Honorable Minister, I mean, for as long as one can remember, the delicate nature of discussing population issues in the country has always been on the table. So, are we thinking of how we can surmount those challenges or begin to address those challenges? Because they center around culture, center around religion, and politics, resource allocation, and all of that. And as we continue to say, well, look, this is a delicate piece of China, don't break it so that I don't create some confusion. We are seeing the consequences such as you have highlighted, such as Dr. Ejike has highlighted, and such as we see daily in the reports in the news media as to what population pressure is doing for us. Earlier you were talking about the connection between population and prosperity. What economists recommend is that our GDP annual growth rate must outstrip our population growth rate. The population growth is about 3.2, I believe, the last time we got the numbers. But we have not been able to achieve 3.2. In fact, we are in a technical recession right now. So when are we therefore going to place these issues on the front burner and take it away from the comfort of our private homes, and then let everybody begin to see the consequences of what we have faced with, and therefore how to begin to deal with it without necessarily offending our sensibilities?
You're correct. I think there's an awakening that is coming up, and that awakening actually started several years ago, but it hasn't reached everywhere. And because it hasn't reached everywhere, there are decision makers, community leaders who do not see it as logically and as rationally as economists see it. And the nature of living in society is that you must take the opinion and consideration of all persons into view. And so you can't, even if you don't agree with this particular class of reasoning, you still have to take it into consideration in whatever you are doing for the sake of social stability and political stability. But there's an awakening, and the awakening is such that everybody is seeing now what it means to have a large number of youths who have no jobs, who have no very poor education or no education, and who do not see a future, and who more or less are on their own, are catered for. So the question now is beginning to arise, okay, how did we get to this situation? What are we going to do about it? So the conversation around it is getting more serious, and I do believe that solid policies will begin to follow. There was a time when a particular regime recommended 4 children per couple. 4 children. But it wasn't really put down as a law or as a firm policy. It was a recommendation. But I think that with the situation we are seeing, that conversation will come up. The pressure for lack of opportunities that leads young people to risk their lives and leave the country, so that the number of people who are productive in a productive age, who take care of those who are not yet able to take care of themselves, is actually not very large proportion. So I think that pressure will eventually lead to more discussion. that will strengthen strong policy stance. You know, there was a time when China faced such a situation, and they took a decision that every couple should have only one child, and began to encourage couples to not only reduce the number of children that, I think to limit their household to one child, but also began to put some sanctions for those who actually violated that recommendation.
Okay, Ulla, I don't know how to put it, but I'm just going to put the question straight. What is the best option for managing, population? Because obviously, if you talk about population management, what comes to mind is family planning. And in this part of the world, when you talk about family planning, I'm sure you must have heard the response from contributions from those respondents. It is still going to ever stoke controversy around religion, as Kingsley said, around culture and fundamental human rights. So, what are the options we are looking at? And do you think this is it not an ambitious strategy?
No, I don't think it is ambitious. I think we need to change the narrative. I think we need to be better at explaining why this is so important. I think we need to take it down to family level and say this also impacts family wealth and health. If you have to educate 10 children within 10 years, that's a major drain on your economy. But if you have to educate 10 children over 30 years, your disposable income is higher. I think we have to remember that you can still have 10 children if that is your aspiration. Women are of reproductive age for more than 30 years. So you can space these pregnancies in a way that also stretches the financial commitment you need to make as a family in order to make sure that everyone thrives. I think education is critical. What we know from also from countries in this region and in sub-Saharan Africa is also that when people get better quality education, both men and women, they tend to choose to have smaller families because they don't need children in the same way to carry them through their entire lifespan. You talk about whether it's a lost case, you say, in this region and this part of the world. If you look at Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe have a relatively high contraceptive prevalence rate. And that has been based on investment in education, which also was paralleled then by making family planning accessible for populations. So we know it can be done. And so I really think it is about changing that narrative and say this is not about control, this is not about planning. It's about making sure that everyone understands the influence they have, and as you say, it is a human right. And just remember, the right to life is actually, it's very controversial, but the maternal mortality rate in a country like Nigeria is very high. It's one of the highest, and there's huge regional discrepancies within the country. Women in Nigeria die from preventable causes that could have been avoided. You say access to family planning can decrease maternal mortality with up to 25%. That's a lot of life saved, right?
Can you unbundle family planning for us so that we can all understand? You've talked about child spacing. What is family planning?
Family planning just means that you decide when you want to be pregnant next time. It doesn't mean you don't have any more children. It is very simple. You decide as a family, when do you want to have your next pregnancy? You space it. The mother remains healthy. The child is more likely to be healthy. We know child mortality also drops. We know education level increases. Family planning is an enabler for economic and social growth. And I will also say, when we look at the Sustainable Development Goals, I'm sorry, they will not happen without universal access to family planning and population management. It's not going to be achievable. But it's about planning When do you have your next children? And if you want to have more children? That's the simple version.
Okay, thank you very much, Ulam Mula. Dr. Ejike, you've been on this agenda for some years now, and as I indicated earlier in our conversation, you have been a guest on Good Morning Nigeria talking about this. My question is going to Dr. Ejike Orji. Dr. Ejike, how much progress, if any, are we making, say, over a given time frame? Are we tearing down barriers? Are we still just crawling, or we are running on the same spot? What is our story with regard to efficient population management?
Yes, well when I look at this sort of issue, I look at it on cross-cutting areas. First of all, has government shown leadership that this is a problem and the government wants to solve it? The second one I want to look at is the governance structures put in place to make sure that happens. And then, of course, we look at the service delivery imperatives. How do the women and men in Nigeria get the services when? And then, of course, we look at how do we monitor and evaluate what we have done, whether we are meeting our targets. So let's start from leadership. There's no doubt that the government has shown wonderful leadership. There was a population policy developed far back in 2004. It's about to be revised. Also, the government has put in place a blueprint, the family planning blueprint, which expired last year, and a new one has been developed. In fact, I'm so excited that I'm sitting here with the Honorable Minister of Health. He launched the new family planning blueprint October this year to expand services, because occasionally it is not just because somebody wishes to. Family planning happens to be one of the most individualized services in healthcare. You have to counsel a woman and a man and then show them different methods, and based on their body constitution and what they want, you cannot prescribe a method that they will use. So the providers that provide it, family planning is important. So government has done a task-shifting, task-sharing policy, which states are now doing. Just about, I think, 22 states so far have been able to do that. Government also has done a communication strategy and plan. Because one of the key things, remember the minister mentioning about getting information to people, government has actually done that. There's a communication plan, a strategy and a plan. And then there's something we call the green dot logo. So, and it's placed in everywhere in the country where the women, once you see that green dot, you know that family planning services are available. Government has also made family planning services free. In other words, in any public site in Nigeria, if any woman or a man walks in there, he or she can get family planning services without paying a dime. In 2011, my association successfully advocated to government, and they put $3 million on the table as commodities purchase money. Before then, all the commodities we get in this country are supplied by donors. But federal government puts 3 million. And in 2018, this administration added another 1 million, making it $4 million that we put on the table to make sure that we have family planning services. The minister here has actually directed that this last one should be released for family planning services in the country. So what I'm trying to say here is that there is tremendous policy direction from government. At the NIPS, I hear that the federal government, president has directed them to focus on public policy imperatives in terms of population growth and human capital development. So on leadership level, we have done very well. But on the governance structure level to make sure this happens, that's where we have a problem. The federal government is doing a lot, but I can tell you at the sub-national level, we need a lot of work to do. And that's why some of us are proposing that Mr. President should please call the governors and talk to them. Nothing much is happening really in the way we want at the sub-national level. That's where the issues are. And health is on the concurrent list. They cannot, federal government cannot prescribe to the states. They cannot prescribe to this. The states have to take responsibility.
Why the apparent lethargy at the subnational level?
Well, this is one thing I have been looking at and asking myself what is really going on, because like everybody has spoken here, if you manage your family, there's prosperity. So we keep asking, why are the states, even to put it on their budget line item is a problem? When they even do, I was working with state-led accountability mechanism in about 18 states. Last year, we did an analysis, and some states have actually increased their budgetary allocation to health for almost 15%. But when you look at the releases that go with these things, none of them was above 4.5%. So it's leadership at that level that we keep saying that they need to understand that this is a death or life situation for us in the country.
Dr. Ajay, it could also be that leadership at that level is also sensitive to, the beliefs and, views of people, at the subnational level. Because a lot of people's lives, especially in Nigeria, revolve around their cultural and religious beliefs. And some, believe that their religion, mandates them to have multiple wives, therefore multiple children. Others, especially from the area you and I come from, they cling on to a lot, patriarchal, system a lot. So, which, helps to fuel, the number of children a woman, for instance, have. If you don't have a male gender, you're encouraged to keep having more and more, until you get a male child. So, how are you going to, convince or have the buy-in of people at that subnational level? Because when you do, then you'll be able to, work with the subnational governments.
Thank you for saying that. But you see, I belong to the school of thought. If you say you want to lead, you must be a visionary. You must have knowledge. You must lead your people, even with their eyes closed. They will trust you, and you take them to El Dorado.
But you can't throw away the religious belief of people just like that.
What I want to say here is that if you believe that's the best way, unless you believe that something is good, you won't be able to plan for it. There's a lot of work that has actually been done with the Christian clerics and the Muslim clerics. Take, for instance, the association recognized that one of the major barriers of family planning in Nigeria is religious barrier. Because both religions say, go ye and procreate. But the same religion, all of them, the two of them say, any person that cannot take care of his family is worse than an infidel. So this family planning that the religions are actually preaching. And that's why we have made sure that we are working with the interfaith group. For every conference that we have in our family planning conference, we have a pre-conference of the interfaith group. And they have actually developed a Christian perspective and a Muslim perspective for family planning, which the imams used to preach. Okay. The federal minister launched that document a few years ago. So a lot of work is being done. A recent research has actually shown that religion is not the major impediment to family planning. It's actually myths and misconceptions of side effects. As we speak to tell you both what the government is doing in terms of communication strategy and plan, and then what civil society organizations like us are doing. The unmet need of Nigerian women is 20%. 20% of Nigerian women say that I want family planning services. For now, they are not getting it. But the other thing is the male involvement, advocating to the men to be supportive of the women. Because by anatomy and physiology, it looks like the burden of family planning services on the woman. I know that there's some research going on in England, which of course they have discarded because of this tremendous side effects that came out of it. We had a hormonal type of family planning product is trying to be developed for men. So for now, it's only barrier and abstinence. So the whole burden is also on the woman. So, and that's why we're also talking to the men to be supportive of their wives and then make sure that they get the services that they need. But also the important thing here in terms of our religion, like you said, pushing back. The children that would deliver the children of Nigeria that will make a population 400 or 450 million in 2050 are already born. Even all of us stop producing now, the children are already born. And this is why we are also saying that the adolescents, the young people, we must focus on them. We call them the very visible but hard to reach. If we do not give them the appropriate information, whether they are married or unmarried, to make sure that they don't get pregnant unless it is necessary, but then we are all in trouble. 2 years ago, I was in Malawi, and then during the country group, is 18 country states on focal points of Africa, 18 Anglophone countries. We had a meeting there. And when it came to group work, I went to the Malawian group. I said, I'm now a Malawian. Let me know what they are doing. I was shocked to learn that they were actually taking services to the secondary schools, where teenagers are counseled. When they find out that they are sexually active, they counsel and give them a method there and then. Well, one of my questions, was there a pushback? They said certainly there was a big one. One little girl, 16 years old, they went to their school. By the time she was counseled, they found out she was sexually active. So they gave her a method, an implant. And there was a bandage put around her arm because there was some slight bleeding. When she got home, the mother said, what's happened to your hand? Did you fall? She said, no. She said they forced her and gave her a family planning implant. So the woman had the phone number of the minister and called the Federal Minister of Health there and said, so it has come to the point you will force our young girls to have family planning. So the next day, the minister called a meeting of the principal, the health department that is responsible for that outreach, and the girl and the mother. So when the girl the teacher looked her straight into the face when they posed the question, did the teacher force you? She now said no, that she was actually talked to and then she decided to have it. That's why Malawi, their contraceptive prevalence rate is almost 50%. So we need to show leadership at that level. We need to have community engagement and public education in a way that people will understand. Nigerians are brilliant people. We're showing it all over the world. If we are properly explained to and show a good pathway, Nigerians will follow. And they're already doing that.
I'm sure, Dr. Ejike, thank you very much for the example you just cited about Malawi. But I'm sure you're also familiar with the kind of resistance you find from certain quarters that, look, don't introduce sex education in high schools, because it is claimed that you will spoil the children by exposing them to such ideas. But as you said, we keep knocking at the door and then tearing down the barriers.
Exactly.
So that at the end of the day, the numbers will be more salutary and therefore manageable. I just wanted you to repeat something again. I think that's a pretty interesting point that you made among several others, that by 2050, the projection is that we will be so many, but that those who will make that happen are already available.
They're already born.
Yeah, just repeat it for us for the benefit of our viewers one more time, so that we know the magnitude of what we're likely dealing with.
Exactly. What I'm saying is that the children we have born now, this youthful bulge that we have right now, who have not gotten married, who have not started having babies, even if we stop, all of us that are adults now, if we stop today to have children, the children we already born, they will drive our population to 400 to 450 million by 2050.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Ejike. Let's return one more time to Mr. Alfonso of the National Population Commission. You are head of the Population Management Department. What exactly does the NPC do with regard to population management?
Yeah, thank you very much. NPC, by presidential mandate, is to coordinate all population activities in Nigeria. And we do that sectorially. We have three organs that complete that circuit. We first have our population technical working group, who monitors the policy implementation and report back to the superior organ, that is population attribute, PhD. And then finally to the Nigerian Population Management Council, which are the apex, where the president is the chairman. Now, the functional aspect of all this day-to-day running or quarterly running of this frame is the Population Technical Working Group, whose chairman is the Director General of the National Population Commission. We do this by meeting all the sectors that are involved in population activity in Nigeria to give us information.
All right, Mr. Alfonso, thanks a lot. We're going to have to take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation.
The Council of Our Fathers.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
My name is Nando Jamda Muhammad.
Hussein Musa.
Roduna Joel Finji. Musa John. I'm a carpenter. I've been doing this for more than 8 years now.
Ina sai da plantain na kai kimamin shekara uku.
I've been selling my tomatoes for about 10 years now, and I do it for a better Nigeria.
Ina wannan sana'ar lemu ne domin Najeriya ta ci gaba.
Ina sa domin Najeriya ta kyau.
And you can see how we're doing our small little work to make Nigeria great.
As you can see, I'm a technician and I'm doing it to help myself and to help my generation.
Ina zaune ne a plateau na business. Kuma ina yin wannan domin ci gaban ƙasar Najeriya.
For a better Nigeria. This message is from the National Orientation Agency. Dialogue, empathy, love and unity. These are vital components of nation building.
For all to be well, we appeal that we should refrain from volatile, provocative, inciting messages and language.
Let's build and not destroy.
The Red Devils will look to continue their greatest away form when they travel to London to face the Hammers this Saturday. Will they succeed, or will the Hammers win their third consecutive home game against the Red Devils? Find out when West Ham United host Manchester United on the Premier League Live from 6 p.m, showing on the NTA network. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Axis Bank, Papai Jebu, Lipton Tea, and Close Up in association with Gold.com.
All right, quite an interesting discussion we're having here in the studio. So let's also get to the nitty-gritty of our conversation. And I'm starting off this session with Honorable Minister Dr. Osagie Henry. In 2012, Nigeria committed to the FP initiative, if I'm correct. Am I correct, Honorable Minister?
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes.
So what are the details of those commitments and where are we?
Well, I can't tell you exactly how far we've gone with it, but because those are it's a very technical situation. But I think, if I understand correctly, we are in the process of trying to renew and redo that commitment. I was doing a draft for it the other day, and to get us to where we are supposed to be. The situation we're in with contraceptive prevalence rate, the modern rate is 12% at the moment. The traditional altogether is 17%. Our aspiration is supposed to be 27% by 2020. So we have not really, 2020 is gone, we have not really been there, we have not done what we are supposed to do. So that's why we are recommitting, starting all over again, to try and rejig our situation. But as I said earlier, the awakening is there to stimulate thinking, to stimulate new ideas, and probably a new attitude to family planning. And learn so that people can take responsibility, know that they are responsible for their own children, rather than think that the state will provide for them, or God provides for everybody. But if you have children in the belief that there will be free education, free health, free jobs, everything done, you have no responsibility, then that is not the way to go at this time. And couples are going to have to be made to understand that you are responsible for the number of children you put into this world, and you should be held responsible socially also for the children that you bring into this world.
I just wonder, Honorable Minister, again, we've had the privilege of your presence as a guest on Good Morning Nigeria, and sometimes some of the issues we discuss often will dredge up the gap in follow-up responses, or for the subnational entities to be in lockstep with the federal government. Dr. Ejike once again was highlighting those gaps. Yesterday we had guests, who were talking about disabilities and the huge gaps that you find also at the subnational level. Now, on the issue of population management, because sometimes when you say family planning, it's like you want to castrate everybody and so on and so forth. Is the National Council of Health taking this as a priority item? And there are many priority items. I mean, from primary health care, for instance, is a priority item, and so on and so forth. But population management, are we likely to see this as an item recurrent on your agenda at the National Council of Health, with a feedback mechanism on what states have done and doing are proposing to do?
Yes, it features because it is under the Department of Family Health, and so you do have population issues featuring. But I can see that there's going to be more emphasis on it. There's going to have received more mention than ever before, especially since we have performed so dismally in our expectations of getting only 12% modern contraceptive instead of 27. So we have to redouble our efforts. But again, you have to balance that with the politics that goes on at subnational level, particularly the attitude to promise everything to people during election, during campaign. You promise to take care of all their children, to give everybody jobs. You promise you're going to give everybody education, everybody get free health. So of course, the families feel they don't have anything to do. Just government will take care of all the children you produce. It has to change, and that it has to change, particularly at the subnational level, but also at national level. Everybody has to be responsible for their own actions, for their own families, and expect to be held responsible for your family. If you have children, you're supposed to pay for their education. And in other countries, if you don't pay, it is deducted from your salary by compulsorily. It is taken out of your salary. You don't go away scot-free. So, but here, you leave the burden to the wife or to the mother, and you get away with it. So, continue producing without really being responsible for except they are successful, then you come out. If the children are not successful, then the father can hide. But that situation really has to change, and the attitude has to change.
Okay, thank you. Ula, are there strategic approaches to upscale the awareness of women, to the benefits of child spacing, and how? Because I think they are, the burden falls on them. That's one leg of my question, if you may.
So in UNFPA, we work very closely with women organizations across the country, and also in very rural areas, because the biggest challenge is in the rural areas. It is the areas hardest to reach, and how do we get there? So we are working with women's organizations, but also with youth organizations. They're very important to have with them, and young women, so that they understand exactly what it is we are talking about. That's an empowerment part also in understanding what is your right as a citizen, And also, again, what is the role that they want to play. But alongside with that, on building capacity in communities, working with women's organizations, understanding what does the women actually want, because it has to be their choice. We have to remember that all the time. Also engaging, we heard before talking about male involvement. It's very, very important that we remember to include the men in the conversations, not always in the same conversations, but in separate, where we also talk through what are the benefits from a family perspective, what are the benefits for the husband, for the boyfriend, what is the idea. And also then the last part of that conversation at community level is, of course, including religious and traditional leaders. And I will say, also echoing what we just heard about for the pre-conference for family planning, which is starting next week, there's been a lot of work done with the interfaith organizations. And we are increasingly seeing religious scholars interpreting the scriptures, and also saying the scriptures do actually give way for family planning, because we have to be able to look after our children. So there's a lot of moving parts in that strategy. But what we do see is that awakening that the Honourable Minister is talking about is happening also in communities. But it will be a journey, and it's not necessarily going to be an easy journey. I just want to raise one point about young women. And I think this is about the youth. We heard also how big a percentage of the Nigerian population is young. We heard the next generation is already born. Mm-hmm. So involving youth and young women is really important in this. And what we do know is that when you talk to young men and young women, very few of them aspire to be parents when they are 16. And there's a difference between married youth and unmarried youth. But both need to have an unbiased access to family planning so they can make their choices. And that, I think, is going to be the next big hurdle, is creating social acceptance of the fact that you have sexual active youth who are not necessarily married and who do not want to have children. And that is going to be a sensible conversation, but it's also going to be a difficult conversation.
Would you be pushing for legislation, given that our attempt, as Dr. Oji earlier stated in years back, wasn't largely successful? Would you also be pushing for legislation as in other parts of the country?
What do you mean, legislation?
Legislation to legislate, family planning such that it becomes a law.
But I think the policies are in place by and large in Nigeria. I think we have a very good policy framework. I don't think we should, by law, determine any number of children. I don't think that's a wrong way to go down from. I think very wrong. And I think we agree on that. You can give advice and recommendations, but we cannot impose control. I think that would be a mistake. But I think, as we heard, family planning access is free in this country. If any woman or young girl goes into a facility and wants family planning, she will be counseled. So I think the legal framework is, by and large, where it should be. I think it's about behavior change communication. It's about engaging communities. And it's also building capacity of healthcare providers, having the difficult conversations around provider bias. Because in rural areas, a young woman can go into a health facility, and then it's her mother's friend who is the nurse, and she will tell her, you should not be doing this, you're not yet married, and then she walks away.
Right? The larger criticisms against family planning has been centered on contraceptives, yes, and the effect on the body, and of course what the holy books prescribe. Can you speak to us about that?
About side effects?
Contraceptives and the harmful effects on the body.
Yeah.
Because that has been the issue raised by critiques of family planning.
Yes, but the interesting part is that it's never been documented, really. And I think that's what we need to remember. When you look at side effects across all kinds of medicines that people take, the one who have the least risk is actually family planning. It's in the very low risk area. The side effects are minimal, but I think we need the doctors to talk a little bit more to that. I'm not a medical doctor. I just want to be very clear on that, right? But I just want to say we know that of all the things that people and people do take a lot of self-induced drugs, and they go to the pharmacy and there's a lot more side effects on that than a well-administered method of family planning. That's very clear.
All right, thank you very much, Ula Mula. Dr. Ejike Oji, In terms of the strategic communication component of population management, and more specifically family planning, are we missing out on targeting appropriate messages and seeking to focus more on men rather than the emphasis being on women? Biologically, as we know, a woman can't get pregnant for more than once in 9 months. But a man, of course, has the capacity of inseminating thousands, several more. And from what we have seen and what we hear in our environment, it appears that a great deal of responsibility is being placed on the woman rather than also on the man. And we see the socio-economic consequences. When the children come and the school fees time comes, you are the man that will pay the school fees. You are the man that will build the house. If you are living in a face me, I face you, once the population in that face me, I face you explodes, you are the one that will go and look for alternative accommodation. Why is it that we are not focusing our communication on men? Because when you hear some persons, it's as if for a man to get into family planning, is you are denying him of his manhood.
Yeah, thank you, Kingsley. I think this is a big conversation that is going on. But for some of us that have practical knowledge of the environment, being in programming for so many years, anytime we bring up this conversation, I look at using the Pareto's rule, where do I put 80% of my resources for the outcome I'm expecting? And I have cliches or let's say stories from the field that show that if I have 100 naira, I'd rather put 80 naira on the women rather than put it on the men. The simple reason is, if you look at the biology or the anatomy and physiology of surrounding pregnancy, the woman carries almost all the burden, so to speak. So at the end of the day, when a woman is pregnant, the man stays away for 9 months, so to speak. When the woman delivers, it's the woman that is in the delivery room. She takes all the burden. Like you said, when the baby pops up, some men, they are not fathers anymore, they disappear. Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to make an investment, I would rather concentrate my investment on the woman. I'm not saying we should not talk to the men. I'm talking about in terms of resources allocation. But how am I going to allocate the resources? It's been shown convincingly by research. If you do targeted girl-child education, the outcome from a secondary school leaver is way, way more than the outcome from a girl that didn't go to school at all. The outcome from a girl that goes to the university is also much, much easier because the women now make decisions for themselves. So the first investment I would like to make is to give the women the information, the skills and ability to make decisions for themselves. Now, a woman that is well educated brings income on the income table. So she can now tell her husband, if you want me to continue to go to work to subsidize what you bring to make sure that our family goes to prosperity, she has a better negotiation voice on the table with her husband. So that's number one investment. Then the second one is that, talking about family planning services, really, if the woman has to make the decision, the man now doesn't want her to stop having pregnancy, if she can take that by her own volition. And I'll give you specific examples from the field. 2 stories. One, a woman had gone to a family planning, a community sensitization program on reproductive health issues. 7 years before this incident I'm trying to say happened, that was where she learned that it is dangerous for her to have more than 4 children. The 5th pregnancy might be more dangerous than the other 4 pregnancies put together. So she said, so I'm risking my life. She already had 7 children. And her husband wanted more. Mm-hmm. So in that outreach, she learned that she can get family planning services and then do it in a way that her husband would know. So she went to the clinic and decided to take an intrauterine contraceptive device as a method. But we had also trained providers that when the thread, make sure it doesn't come out because the man will feel it and say what's going on there. But unfortunately for For 7 years, nothing was happening. The man was saying, what's going on? He said, well, God brings. When God brings the baby, we'll have the baby. But unfortunately for her, the IUCD shifted. So the man was feeling the threat. I said, what did you do inside there? The woman had to confess. So he took her to the hospital. To tell you how men are, he took her to the hospital, went to the doctor and said, remove that thing you put inside there. And stayed inside the consulting room and looked until the doctor removed the IUCD. So, but you know what the woman did? Because the woman knows it's her life. The woman surreptitiously forgot her bag in the consulting room. The man had already gone and sat in his car, and then the woman ran out to say, it was the one that said, where's your bag? He said, oh, my good husband, I forgot my bag. She ran back into the consulting room and told that doctor, there's that one they call injection. Give me that injection. So the doctor gave her hormonal injection for contraception. So she carried her bag. And then the man, feeling that he's King Kong. But the woman was able to do that because she was informed. I'm not saying we should not talk to the men. We will continue to talk to them. But I feel, let us increase girl-child education. It's all evidence in our country.
Dr. Ejike, your point is noted. I'm sorry to interject, because I recall once when we were discussing this same topic here on Good Morning Nigeria, there's a senator from one of the states, a female senator, who said that, yes, in spite of the empowerment that comes with education for the woman, that in some families, you as a woman, no matter your level of education and your economic status, you will still require the permission of your husband before you undertake or undergo contraception. And if you neglected him, then a family meeting will be summoned.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, that occasionally it's not all laws that are obeyed, if you ask me. If the woman is empowered, the woman will do the right thing. But we are also saying that we should be talking to the men. No doubts about that. In fact, there was a big policy dialogue about 2 years ago here, anchored by This Day of Nigeria, where we focused on male involvement. Let's talk to the men. And then the only way and only thing men listen to, because I remember I made that pitch, if you show a man clearly the prosperity that will go with his letting his wife space the children properly and limit the size of the family, if that narrative can be connected to the men, it resonates with men. It resonates with men. You know, I keep saying that occasionally we overplay this thing of religion and culture. Like I said, a research done by Gates Foundation 2 years ago showed that religion is no more the major barrier. The major barrier is those myths and misconceptions. You posed that question to Ola, the side effects and all that. Side effects are very minimal. But the myths and misconceptions around it pose a lot of danger in terms of...
So you bust the myths, right?
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
I'd just like for us to also look at the values, upholding some of our cherished values. Now, if we're taking this issue to the adolescents or to the students in the schools, are we not also breaking down some of those cherished values of abstinence? Don't do this before get into the matrimonial home and things like that, because you now give students the license, the liberty. Oh, if I know I have this implant, this prevention, I can do whatever I like to do. Dr. Ejike, yes.
That is the narrative we hear every day. You know why? The reason is that we are, should I say, doing the ostrich hiding. The first show in 2006 or 7, Packard Foundation did a study to find out who is actually dying when it comes to maternal mortality. 70% of all maternal deaths as at that time were children below the age of 18. Most of them are not married, but they are having sex and getting pregnant and dying on the pathway of unsafe abortion complications. Then another research has shown globally that in countries where there is comprehensive sexuality education, you give age-appropriate information, that unintended pregnancy is actually reduced. Do you get my point? Unintended pregnancies, unwanted pregnancies, actually reduced compared to countries where we are saying, don't tell the children anything, don't tell the children anything. I have 2 girls. From the time they were small, I started educating them about sex.
And in any event, I mean, it's the countries to which some Nigerians are seeking to emigrate to, they do family planning in those countries. They see the level of prosperity in those countries arising from the fact that they are able to manage their populations much better. So, this is but I think that...
Ella wants to respond to the
you
issue.
want to respond?
Yes.
I just want to add to this issue about values, right? So a value is also caring for each other. And a value is also respecting human lives and each other when you're boyfriend-girlfriend. And I think we have to learn, my generation, I'm a grandmother, okay? I do not like to think about my grandson who is turning 17 next time. I don't want to think of him as sexually active. That's an emotion inside of me. But reality is that teenagers are sexually active. And I think it's about a value of responsibility for the choices you make. And I think when you look at the teenage rate of pregnancy in Nigeria, that is a very clear indication that Nigerian teenagers are sexually active. And that takes us to the numbers we just heard from my colleague. That leads to women dying, young girls dying, their entire future lost because of unsafe abortions that kills them. Or they are dropping out of school and they end up being single mothers in a very young age. All those other consequences are just dire for a country like Nigeria because you lose out of that potential that young girl could bring to society. So let's not live in ignorance or in denial or pretend we are ostriches. I think that's a very good analogy. Let's own the fact that teenagers are sexually active, whether we like it or not, and we can teach them to be that in a responsible way, whereby they don't ruin their futures and look after each other.
I will preface this question, with the greatest caution. But since we're having this context of our discourse around myths, prejudices, and perceptions, in otherwise enlightened quarters, I'm sure you must have heard this argument, Dr. Ike in particular, having been dealing with this issue for many years. And I would like Mullah to respond to this. The view has been expressed, sometimes shockingly, that population management is a device by the Caucasian race to hold down the population of the black race, because they feel that the Caucasian race might in future, in terms of actuarial projections, thin out, and then the black race would overwhelm and populate the entire world. And so suspicion arises when this is being funded, when you have all kinds of comments and commitments coming from the Caucasian race. But as I said, you hear this argument sometimes in otherwise enlightened quarters.
Indeed. And as you can imagine, I hear that particularly often. But I also think conspiracy theories, there's lots of them. And I just want to say, if that was a true theory, then the Caucasian race have lost that game. In my country, we have a declining fertility rate. I mean, forget it, it's not about that. It's about healthy lives. It's about ensuring both the mother and the father survives. It's about ensuring that children are born because they're welcomed into this world, not because there was no way the mom couldn't avoid that next pregnancy. She might want to wait. The trick about unmet need is not that the woman doesn't want to have more children. She would just like her body to rest a year. So that's when you get unwanted children, is when a woman has to have that extra child at a time where her body may not be able to give the best health condition to her and to her child.
Okay, we have just a minute. Let's quickly take our tweets that have come in. Mike Ayanko, are we overpopulated? The answer is no. We cluster in urban areas for many obvious reasons. Go to remote villages, you'll see nobody. Let's start development and industrializations of hinterlands to drift people there. Some people run away from villages because of perceived...
Well, so how does Mike then explain the fact that you have no fewer than 70% of the population involved in agriculture in the rural areas? So where are those persons coming from? Now, Ajani Olaoluwa, I want to take this now, says, what you don't measure, you can't manage. Our failure to consistently conduct a census exercise is a major reason it's difficult to manage our population effectively. So we have to fix that first.
Okay, so Kingsley, we are told that we can't take.
Well, yeah, I just there's something here. It's all about on the economics. First, Akimboyewa says there's need to control Nigeria's bloated population. It would be a miracle for a country of 200 million people earning less than $30 billion annually to achieve much.
Honorable Minister, just in 60 seconds. So this recommitment to FP 2020, how seriously are we taking it? Where do we go from here?
It has to be, I was listening to all the conversation just now, it has to be a multi-pronged approach. And it is true that a lot of focus appears to be on the women, and also for obvious reasons, because they are the ones carrying the pregnancy, they are the ones at risk. But I take the comment of Ms. Miller just now very, very seriously, that children should be welcomed into this world. You don't want a lot of children who came unwelcomed, who came because we're not really wanted, because it creates complications. Secondly, I believe that men should be held responsible also for the children they bring into this world. So if you have a child and you can abdicate responsibility, then of course what stops you from going around and doing that everywhere? So and having more children than you can actually manage. Then of course there's a religious aspect which we hear is declining, but it is there in the subsurface. And then there's a political aspect of looking for votes by promising everything free, when really nothing is free. So I think that if we take a multi-pronged approach, we'll get better results.
Honorable Minister, thanks a lot. We earlier introduced Dr. Ejike Algi as chair of the local organizing committee for the Family Planning Conference in Abuja. Tell us, what's the theme, what to expect, and what potential outcomes there might be, very quickly.
Yes, thank you very much. We're having our sixth National Family Planning Conference. And you know, every 2 years we do that in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Health. And our master here is the Minister of Health sitting here. We're very delighted to have his support. The theme for this year is FP 2020 Agenda, the post-FP 2020 Agenda on the safeguarding investments in emergencies. Excuse me. And we also had about 7 sub-themes, but those on a broad view are focusing on how do we reposition family planning financing, how do we look at making sure that during the pandemic that is still ongoing that women have services that they require. And then also there has been a lot of talk around adolescents. We call them divisible but hard to reach. How do we reposition our narratives to make sure that those young people get the service that they need? And then finally, we're also looking at the gender-based violence that came out because of the pandemic lockdown, how Nigeria has been on the map, even though it's a global phenomenon, but in Nigeria it became something that all of us are unhappy about.
All right.
So we have three brief conferences, youths, women, and interfaith, and finally the major conferences on the 9th, 10th, and 11th. And Honorable Minister is our chief host. All
right, Dr. Ejike Algi, Chairman, Association of for the Advancement of Family Planning, and of course, Chair, Local Organizing Committee of the conference. Thank you very much for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Let me also appreciate Ula Elizabeth Muller, Nigeria, Resident Representative, United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA. Thank you very much for joining us. We also had Arinzechi Ndoka Alphonsus, Acting Director and Head Population Management Department, NPC, who joined us via Zoom from Akwanga in Nasarawa State. Thank you. Honorable Minister of Health, Dr. Sagi Hanire, always a pleasure to have you with us here in the studio.
Thank you.
All right, that's it on Good Morning Nigeria for today. On behalf of the production crew, I am Claire Dilabo Abdul Razak. Have a wonderful weekend.
Program returns on Monday, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, enjoy your weekend, stay safe and be well. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
thought this would work. It has to. I can't miss this guy's lecture. Just keep your phone on so I can listen.
Today we're going to be discussing sleep What is the medical term for sleepwalking?
Somnambulism.
Correct.
Get free Intel to Intel calls and experience HD quality conversations every time. Intel. Live more.
The year 2020 is winding down fast, and indeed it has been one unforgettable experience, from the unexpected to the uncertain. But one thing for sure is certainty with growth in the entertainment industry against all odds, with mind-blowing strides. The recent Butter Boys' second Grammy nomination with Twice as Tall makes it even more convincing. And so today, as expected, it will be all frills and thrills and click light, your one-stop entertainment show on the Nigerian Television Authority, Africa's largest TV network. I am Ekemini Williams, and I've got company. She is Miriam Cole from Kiss FM, and it's gonna be all vavavoom, you know. Yes. All right, so let's take a sneak peek at what's gonna come on the show today. So our specialty is about to unfold with, of course, trending news. Let's do some catching up.
Calling me a monster, calling us fake. No way, no way, no way.
Self-acclaimed African giant Damini Ogulu, aka Burna Boy, has been nominated for the 2021 Grammy Award. Thanks to his year 2020 album Twice as Tall, which has earned the singer his second Grammy nomination in the Best Global Music Album category, contending the likes of Antibalas, Bebel Gilbito, and Tiana Rewen.
They thought it was cool, probably thought we was fools. When we